I'll call to order the Ascension Parish Council meeting for Thursday, October 3rd. If everyone would please stand for the prayer given by Reverend Melvin Williams, who is the pastor of the First Baptist Church of Smoke Bend and Mount Moriah Baptist Church.
Let us pray. Our Father and our God, the giver of every good and perfect gift, the author and finisher of our faith, the God in whom we move, live, and have our being. Again, Father, we come calling upon your most holy and righteous name. We call because we need you, and we can't get along without you. You've been good and you've been kind, for you have brought us more mighty long ways. And our Lord God, most mighty, most holy, and merciful Savior, I know the purpose for which we've come. We pray that all things will be done decently and in order. Pop us where we're weak, build us where we're torn, help us to maintain faith and trust in thee. And Father, when the end shall come, we ask that thou art saved. We ask it all in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. And everybody said, Amen. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Reverend Williams. Roll call, Madam Secretary. All members present with the exception of Councilman Melanson. I have no chair's additions. However, we will now sit as a board of review. As stated in a public notice published in the official journal of the parish, the Gonzales Weekly Citizen, on September 12, 2013 and September 19, 2013, to hear complaints of any and all persons who have filed a written appeal to the Board of Review in such a manner as provided by LARS 47192. We will need a motion to recess from a regular order of business and to convene as a Board of Review.
Motion to recess.
Motion by Councilwoman Cazzo, a second by Councilman Todd Lambert. Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes, and we are now convened as a Board of Review. Madam Secretary, were any appeals received in the office of the Secretary?
Yes, we have two.
I would like to call the assessor up, please, to address the council. Mr. Mert Smiley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Council. The assessment lists were open for the public inspection for a period of 15 days from August 15th through August 29th. During this exposure period, all changes for errors and assessments were made where necessary, and the 2013 assessment list for the parish were correct. Now open the floor for the first appeal.
The first appeal was received by Westlake Vinyls. Any discussion?
That will abstain from that.
Okay, I have an abstention from Councilman Todd Lambert, and also an abstention from Councilman Travis Turner. Madam Secretary, if you please note those two abstentions. Chair would need a vote on accepting or denying the appeal.
Move it, Chairman. To deny.
I have a motion by Councilman Dempsey Lambert to deny the appeal.
Second.
A second by Councilwoman Cazzo. Any objection to that motion? Hearing none, that motion passes and that appeal is denied. The second is from Brent and Wendy Kelsey. Chair will entertain a motion to accept or deny that appeal.
Motion to deny.
I have a motion to deny by Councilman Johnson,
Second.
second by Councilwoman Cazzo. Any discussion? Any objections on that motion? Hearing none, that appeal is denied as well. Chair would now call for a motion to adopt the 2013 tax roll for Ascension Parish.
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Kluwat,
Second.
second by Councilwoman Cazzo. Any objections or discussion on that motion? Hearing none, that motion passes. Chair would now call for a motion to recess as a Board of Review and reconvene as the regular council.
So moved.
Motion by Councilman Satterley. I have a second.
Mr. Chair.
Real quick, let me get a second on that. Second by Councilman Johnson. Discussion, Councilman Sickman.
Just a point of order, I just noticed, Mr. Jason is coming in.
On behalf of Westlake, my apology to the council. I thought the meeting was in Gonzales. He got here as quickly as possible.
I'm not, I just want to bring that to people's attention if they want to take that into consideration.
Is it possible for me to be heard?
Unfortunately not, sir. We've already voted on it, so. The next step, as I understand it, Mr. Smiley, is the tax commission?
That is correct.
Okay, so you could voice your appeal there. Okay, the chair, we have a motion and a second on a motion to recess as the board of review. Any objections to that motion? Hearing none, that motion passes, and we are now reconvened
I'd like to
as a
thank the
regular
council.
Thank you, Mr. Smiley. We'll move on. Item number 4 is a public comment sign-in period. Reminder, if you wish to speak on an item that's on the agenda, please sign in, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak on your topic. Item number 5 is presentations. Mr. Martinez.
I have a proclamation tonight to proclaim October 2013 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Ascension Parish. Whereas domestic violence has reached epidemic proportions in this country, and 1/4 of American women report being physically or sexually abused by a husband or a boyfriend at some point in their lives. Whereas domestic violence affects every community in Louisiana, including more than 3,700 women and their children of the greater Baton Rouge area who last year used the services of the Capital Area Family Violence Intervention Center, Incorporated, now known as the Irish Domestic Violence Center. Whereas the Irish Domestic Violence Center serves the parishes of East Baton Rouge, West Baton Rouge, Ascension, Iberville, Point Capee, and East and West Feliciana parishes with more than 22 beds for emergency shelter, a 24-hour crisis line, counseling, advocacy, legal services, and children's services. Whereas, in recognition of the important work done by domestic violence programs, residents are urged to actively participate in Take Back the Night, Candlelight Vigil, and other programs scheduled to work toward improving victim safety and holding perpetrators of domestic violence abuse accountable for their actions against individual victims and our society as a whole. Now, therefore, it be proclaimed, I, Tommy Martinez, President of the Parish of Ascension, State of Louisiana, by the virtue of the authority vested in me, do hereunder proclaim October 2013 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Ascension Parish. And I have a couple ladies here that would want to speak to you for a second. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll take pictures.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank you all very much. My name is Judy Benitez. I'm the Executive Director of Irish Domestic Violence Center, which formerly had gone by the names of Capital Area Family Violence Intervention Center and the Battered Women's Program. We changed our name this past spring to Irish Domestic Violence Center because we had reorganized the agency and wanted to promote a more positive view of the way that people see those who have had to endure domestic or dating violence as part of their life journey. And the term IRIS, it's not an acronym or anything, and it's not named after a specific person, but it actually refers to the flower because it is purple, and it's, you know, indigenous to Louisiana. Purple's the domestic violence awareness color. But the main reason was that it's irises are known for being really, really resilient. They grow anywhere. You know, you don't have to, you know, do a whole lot to encourage them to grow. They just do it by themselves. And we thought that that was a more positive, strengths-based kind of metaphor for the women and children and men that we serve. And with me is Kim Brown, who I believe a lot of you may know. She's our Director of Outreach, and she works at the office in Gonzales and is the person who's primarily responsible for serving Ascension Parish. She's a very, very valuable part of our team, and we really appreciate all of the help that you all have given her over the years in working out here. So thank you very much, and I appreciate this, and I hope that we will see you next week at the Take Back the Night event.
Hello again. This year I have an added partner, our new executive director. But I just want to speak to Take Back the Night, which is going to be on Monday, October the 7th at 6 p.m. at Jambalaya Park. We would love to see many of you council members out to support. We usually get a lot of support from our parish. Thank you, President Martinez, and the city of Gonzales. But we are seeking to reach past Gonzales to touch Donaldsonville and other components in our area. This is a time that we recognize persons who have died, children, women and men, from September of 2012 until September of 2013. And as it stands, we have 52 people who have been victims of domestic violence. Although it is slightly down from last year, it is still too high of a number. So we would ask that you would please come out and support us in our efforts to decrease domestic violence in our area, and we'll be greatly appreciative.
We have a program Monday night, but I know we have finance and drainage at the same time.
We like finance, go, yeah, do
So,
finance.
so anyway, we want to extend our support. Most of us are going to be in these meetings to let you know why we won't be able to attend. But I know it's an hour program, and we're going to probably be there a lot longer. So. But anyway, thanks a lot for coming, and we appreciate what y'all do.
Great. Councilwoman Cazzo, you had something?
Yeah, I wanted to take just a moment to thank you, ladies, and I was going to mention that on Monday night, I'll have these gentlemen tied up in a finance committee meeting. But what you do is amazing in our community. We appreciate it very much from the bottom of our hearts. And I want these gentlemen to know that for every woman who has battered a child, or more than one child, exists in that home and bears the brunt of that battering as well. So, thank you so much for all that you do.
Thank you. And let me just say one other thing quickly. I'm sure many of you heard of the young lady, the pregnant young lady who was shot 3 times in Gonzales. So this is not, you know, widespread. It's right here in our backyard. Was shot 3 times while she was pregnant, had to deliver the baby early. Thank God she's doing well or doing better. The child is still in the hospital. So, you know, it's very prevalent in this area. It's not as much as other areas, but it is here at home. So we want to do as much as we can to stop it here.
Councilman Turner?
I also like to thank Ms. Brown for the work she does, and I see her pretty often in court and deal with it. And she does a real good job in the court as far as taking care of the women or men and making sure everything's well. I'd like to just thank her again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, please note that Councilman Lawson has joined us. Next up is the Parish President's report. President Martinez.
Yes, I have someone here. It's not an action item, but came to my office this week with the Louisiana Safe Water Drinking Program from DQ, and they're going to have some public meetings here in Ascension Parish. So I'd like Ms. Tiffany Cravens from DQ to come up and give you a little presentation. I think she's given all of you a packet. So, Tiffany.
Thank you very much for these few minutes to speak to you. My name is Tiffany Cravens. I'm a geologist with the Louisiana Department of Environmental Quality's Drinking Water Protection Program. Basically, the program is a public education type of campaign. It's designed to teach people where their drinking water comes from, how and why to protect it. We'll be having some community meetings and promoting this program further. I would like to direct you this time to the packet you all have in front of you. It says DQ. It's kind of hard to miss, probably. There's a lot of information in there on our program, specifically for the council. On the left-hand side of the packet, there's of the folder, there's a packet titled Drinking Water Protection Ordinance. Basically, this is an ordinance we're encouraging. It restricts new businesses that handle, store, or use chemicals from locating within 1,000 feet of a public water supply well. I would like for you guys to take a look at it if you like, and I'd be glad to come back and present the entire ordinance and bring with me a map at the time that would show the coverage for protection that would be had from adopting this ordinance. I know the city of Gonzales has wells that are under your jurisdiction basically because they're in the parish, they're not within their city limits. So these are the types of public supply wells that you would be protecting by adopting this ordinance. And it takes usually a few more minutes than 3 to 5, so I'm not going to go into that. And plus, as I understand it, there are a lot of wells in this parish that have been discontinued from public supply, a lot of neighborhood wells. So my map that I would have brought today would not have been very accurate. And on the right-hand side, there are 2 flyers that start with, do you know where your drinking water comes from? Those are the public meetings we're going to be having. There's going to be one in Gonzales on October 24th and one in Donaldsonville on November 7th. And there, like I said, there are 2 flyers in there, and I would encourage all of you to attend. It's always good for your constituents to see that you're concerned about the need for drinking water protection, and I would be glad to answer any questions about that. I do have business cards in case anybody needs to talk to me further about this, and like I said, I would be glad to come back and do a full presentation on the ordinance after you've had a chance to look at it, after your attorneys looked at it. And as I understand, it is a long ordinance, which didn't seem long to me, but I've been looking at it for many years now. And I talk fast, I'd be glad to read it for y'all if that would be, if y'all wanted me to. Anyway, again, my name is Tiffany Cravens. If y'all have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them, or y'all can contact me anytime. We'll be working in Ascension Parish for probably 6 months to a year with regard to drinking water protection. And we're available for civic group presentations and school presentations also. So keep us in mind.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions?
You gonna leave your card somewhere?
Sure, I'll leave some up here. Thank you.
They're gonna also have a small presentation. They brought a video, and we're gonna run it on 21 for them as a public service announcement. So, that's all I have under my report, but I do have the next one. Oh, I got the moratorium, yeah, I'm sorry. You know, with all the industry and the expansions that are going on here in Ascension Parish and the surrounding area, what I'd like to do tonight is our neighboring parish, St. James, has put a moratorium on RV lots. I think that we need to look at what we have and recommend to the Planning Commission to hold up on any permitting and possibly put a moratorium on RV lots here also in Ascension Parish for a brief period of time until we can look at our ordinance and see and have the Planning Commission come back and maybe make some recommendations to us. So I would ask tonight that for a resolution to ask the Planning Commission to put a moratorium on RV parks until we have time to look at our ordinance and hopefully come up with something, because we don't want a proliferation all over the parish at this point. And then after the construction is over, then you'll be ending up with quite a bit of these different parks. And, you know, I don't think that that's basically what we'd like to see. I'm not saying that I'm against it. I think there's going to be a need for it, but I just want to make sure that they're done properly.
So moved.
Motion by Councilman Mazza.
I would ask that you put a time limit on it just because it's a moratorium.
Okay.
For the Planning Commission, anytime you do it, you have to put a time limit and the reason why you're doing it. And I think the Planning Commission can do that and come up with a proposal. And I
Do
know
we know about how
Gaspas,
much time they're gonna need or want? 6 months?
6 months.
Okay.
That's basically a standard.
Be happy to modify my motion.
And
to read
if
6
it doesn't,
months.
if in that period of time you still don't come up with something, you can extend it another 6 months. But right now, I just think that we need to tweak our ordinance and look at it and see what we need to do.
So moved.
Motion by Councilman
6
Mazza.
months.
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Johnson. Discussion? Councilman Joseph.
Question. That's what I am. I had a phone call today, so I just want to verify. This is only for mobile, traveling trailers and RV, not mobile home
No.
park.
No. We have rules and regulations on mobile home parks
Okay.
that are sufficient, we think.
No.
I just want to, because that's what they was,
And there's going to be a need for housing, and I think that we can work around and even put some temporary type housing in for a brief period of time during construction periods or if the need arises. So what I'm saying, I just want to make sure that we put together something that is workable and that we don't get all of a sudden a big proliferation of RV parked in the parish at this point.
I'd like to ask as well that the Planning Commission or Ricky consider the whole issue. I mean, I think mobile home parks are going to be in demand as well, even with I know we have some stipulations and there's a lot of regulations and everything else around those. I just want to make sure we're considering everything that the larger picture could bring with shale and all these other plants. I mean, where does it make sense zoning wise? You know, are there other things we need to consider around those regulations from a mobile home perspective. And that's just a comment. I'm not going to offer that in any time of motion or anything else. Councilman Kluat?
Yeah, I just want to, just a little explanation for somebody who don't know where we're going with this. I know where it's going. I'm in the industry. All right, we got somewhere around 16 billion worth in Ascension Parish on the books right now. And we've got a lot of industry coming in. We're going to have a lot, everybody needs to come in and have a place to sleep. And a lot of construction trades do use RV parks. And I know we don't have a lot of good regulations on them right now, and I understand that. But like you said, Mr. President, we are going to have that need coming. We don't have enough hotel rooms or houses to rent or trailer parks to take care of that. It's much more expensive for somebody to get a trailer park. So, but we're going to have a long time need. I tell you, at the beginning of the year, back in February, we were in Lake Charles and talking with their council members and several of the parishes in that Lake Charles area. They had a boom going right then, and they were inundated to a point with the RV parks. And that's what they were trying to figure out also. It's just what are we going to do? What kind of regulation we're going to put this? We know somebody's got a pasture and they turn it into an RV park. And then it's going to be a scrap heap in a year, or is it going to be problems? We also got to look, somebody, the sheriff's going to have to go patrol up in there and things like that, so.
Well, like I said,
take a look at that.
It's not that we're not going to need the housing. I understand that. We just need to look at what we have now in the books and try to come up with something that'll hopefully we can work with everyone on and be able to come up with some sort of solution.
Councilman Kaiser?
Yeah, I just want to make one comment. I have one of these RV-type parks in my district. It is the biggest eyesore in my district and maybe in all of North Ascension Parish. And I would encourage whoever's going to be looking at this planning commission, Ricky, please make these folks have to be hooked up to some kind of sewer system. I mean, I've got a gentleman with a travel trailer with a portalette sitting outside it. It is embarrassing to me every time I pass by it. Not only that it exists there in my community and someone has to live in that condition, but secondly, that everybody who gets off the interstate and comes into the gateway to Ascension Parish looks at a travel trailer with a portalette sitting outside of it. So I would really like to see us have some strong regulations about how the sewage is handled in those types of facilities.
Well, that's part of it, and we'll look at that. That's all. And it's not just housing. There's going to be other infrastructure that we have to look at, but this is the beginning of starting to plan ahead for something that may come, and if it does come, we need to be ready for it. It's going to, we're going to have to look at highways. We're going to have to look at sewer as we're doing now. Look, all these different things. So, it's just the first step in getting prepared for what may eventually come. And we already have plenty here, but if the other comes, it's going to be very problematic to our infrastructure in all ways.
And I'd just like to offer up on the flip side of the coin is that for the working folks, men and women that are going to come into our area and build this industry for us, and we thank them very much.
Right.
Having family members and friends, lifelong friends that have been working construction and worked around the country and all over the place, that they have been forced to have to pull their camper, their trailer, or rent a place that the landlord didn't keep anything worth being there. And they were forced into bad conditions, constant complaints. And, when you work in a construction job, you're going to put in between 10, 12 hours a day, and you're coming home. That's your home for 6 months to a year and a half, 2 years. And you need a decent environment around there to sustain yourself. And so the regulations that you're going to possibly look at in the Planning Commission is going to help the people that's coming in, that they do have, and at least have some type of place that's worthy of staying in, not just a place to plug their camper in, a place that does have all the proper provisions and everything that they can count on to live there.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay, had a motion and a second. Any other comments? Any objections? Resolution passes. Item number 7 is an amendment of cooperative endeavor agreement between the Parish of Ascension and the City of Donaldsonville Community Development Block Grant. Ms. Martha Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. I'm here tonight to ask the council to amend an existing CEA, corporate endeavor agreement between the parish and the City of Donaldsonville for the purpose of the Gustav Ike projects under the Community Development Block Grant funding, and to authorize the parish president to execute this. This is an amendment for 2 years. It will be from November 29, 2013 to November 29, 2015.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Councilman Todd Lambert, second by Councilwoman Cazzo. Any discussion? Any objections? Motion passes. Item number 8 is an amendment of a cooperative endeavor agreement between the Parish of Ascension and the Town of Sorrento, Community Development Block Grant. Ms. Collins.
Thank you. We're here to ask you for an approval to amend the existing corporate endeavor agreement between the parish and the Town of Sorrento for the purpose of Gustav Ike projects under the Community Development Block Grant funding, and to authorize Parish President Tommy Martinez, excuse me, sir, you sign that check for me, right, to execute these documents. The amendment is of the terms should be extended from October 26, 2013 to October 26, 2015.
So moved. Motion by Councilman Shake Snyder, second by Councilman Kluwer. Any discussion? Any objections? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Item number 9 is to set the Halloween date and hours for Ascension Parish. Traditionally, Halloween is 31st, and which is a Thursday, and the hours are 6 to 8.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion by Councilman Johnson.
Second.
And a second by Councilman Kluwer to set it as such. Any discussion? Any objection? That motion passes. Item number 10 is a planning and zoning recommendation, a zoning review ID 2349.13, tract 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and Evan Hall Sugar Cooperative Incorporated property located on the west side of LA Highway 1 North, approximately 300 feet north of LA Highway 405, to amend the Ascension Parish zoning map from light industrial LI to heavy industrial HI. Zoning Commission had recommended approval, and we need to accept or deny that. Before we do so, I have a speaker on item 10, Mr. Carey.
Good evening, councilmen. I'd like to ask my representative, Councilman Oliver Joseph, to allow me to support that deal that's going on in 405, and hopefully we'll work something out with that. Hopefully he'll give me flyers to put out in my district in Smoke Bin to let everybody know that's happening. Thank you, and I hope he allow me to do that. Thank you.
Okay. The chair would entertain a motion to accept or deny the zoning commission recommendation of approval.
Motion approved.
Motion approved by Councilman Joseph.
Second.
Second by Councilman Kluwer. Any discussion? Any objection? That motion passes. Item number 11 is in the introduction of ordinances section, is an introduction of an ordinance to revoke an existing drainage servitude located along the former New River at the Methanex USA site in Ascension Parish, and relocate the drainage servitude along the rerouted New River on said side. Moved to council via Unified Development Code 17-4050B.2.a. Chair would entertain a motion to introduce.
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Kluwer.
Second.
Second by Councilman Johnson. Any objection to the introduction? Hearing none, that ordinance is introduced. 12 is an introduction of an ordinance for zoning review ID 2340.13 to amend the Ascension Parish zoning map from medium intensity residential RM to mixed use 2 MU2, lot 63-A, Perkins Oaks, Part 2 for C. Joseph Cascio Sr., located on the north side of Perkins Road, approximately 850 feet west of Airline Highway.
Motion introduced.
I have a motion introduced by Councilman Satterley and a second by Councilman Dempsey Lambert. Any objection to the introduction? Hearing none, ordinance is adopted, introduced. 13 is an introduction of an ordinance, zoning review ID 2341.13, to remove from the official Ascension Parish zoning map as a historical site Robert Penn Warren House for Sammy Nagin, located on the west side of Old Jefferson Highway, LA Highway 73, approximately 1,500 feet north of Carolina Highway.
Motion to introduce.
I have a motion introduced by Councilman Cazzo
Second.
and a second by Councilman Kluwat. Any objections? Hearing none, that ordinance is introduced. 14 is an introduction of an ordinance to amend the Ascension Parish Code of Ordinances, Chapter 18, Political Subdivisions, Autonomous Boards, Commissions, and Authorities, Article 11, Consolidated Utilities District, Section 18-115.6. Chair would entertain a motion to introduce.
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Kluwat,
Second.
second by Councilman Cazzo. Any objection to the introduction? Hearing none, that ordinance is introduced. We'll now move into our public hearing section. And this is the reading of an ordinance SR 13-9, revision to Development Code, zoning tables, and subdivision regulations to the Unified Land Development Code pertaining to design regulations for major subdivisions. Mr. Parrington?
Purpose of this ordinance is to establish design guidelines for major subdivision in the Unified Land Development Code, whereas Ascension Parish is a local governmental subdivision as defined by Article 6, Section 44, Louisiana Constitution, 1974. Parish of Ascension is the governing and responsible body within its jurisdiction, whereas Article 6 of the Home Rule Charter of Ascension Parish, adopted May 4, 1993, identifies the process and manner in which to adopt ordinances regulating the lands of this parish, and whereas the code is incorporated as Appendix 4 of the Parish Unified Land Development Code, adopted December 17, 2009, be it ordained by the Ascension Parish Governing Authority that Appendix 7 of the Ascension Parish Unified Development Code is hereby created as follows. These changes are adopted as follows. See Exhibit 1 attached. In the event any portion of this ordinance is held invalid or unconstitutional for any reason by any court of competent jurisdiction over it, such shall be deemed separate, distinct, and independent, and shall not affect the validity of the remaining ordinances. The ordinances shall be in full effect as permitted by law. Attachments to Exhibit 1. The ordinance have been submitted to a vote. The vote was thereon as follows.
Okay, the chair would entertain motion to open public hearing.
Open public hearing.
Motion to open public hearing by Councilman Johnson.
Second.
Second by Councilman Kluwat. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, please come forward, and you have 3 minutes. Sir, please state your name. Comment card, great.
Good evening. My name is Douglas Villian. I am a professional planner, and I represent one of the developers who builds homes throughout this region, not just Ascension Parish. I think the Planning Commission has done a very good job. The staff has done an excellent job at putting together an ordinance with very good amenities. There's some smart planning principles that are being applied, and I think all of them have merit. However, together, they may not all work for the good of the individual home buyers who are buying these new homes in the subdivisions. I think buffer areas are important. I think parks, sidewalks, and street trees are all very important amenities to subdivisions. The buffer aspect is probably a little excessive. A 200-foot buffer computes to quite a bit of acreage. Not that buffers are not important, but that much acreage could probably be better functioned as maybe a park. So I don't think that there was a stipulation in the ordinance that offers that option, that the buffer area could be used also as a park. Parks are very expensive. When you dedicate land, the developer has to buy that land first and then give it away as a park. That's very good for the homeowners, but it computes to dollars. And for every amenity that's in place, raises the price for that, especially in the case of first home buyers. It raises that level that they're marginally trying to attain, it raises that bar a little bit higher. So it computes to dollars and cents. With respect to parks, I would think that perhaps maybe a little more forethought could be put into how parks are achieved. For one, when a developer of a subdivision dedicates land to a park, it's going to become a private park as per this ordinance. And I don't think homeowners and homeowner associations are in the business to manage and protect and, is that my time? Am I up, sir?
Yes, sir, that's your time.
Would you like me to terminate? Okay.
Yes,
all right.
sir.
Well, I thank you very much, and I think you got the message that a proliferation of parks, private parks, would be a problem.
Great.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Billy Aguilard. Can I ask to clarify something before y'all start timing? There's two parts to this ordinance. Which particular part, number 17, is also introduction of an ordinance for the same revised statute. What's the difference in the two? What part are we speaking about now?
The second one is just fixing the zoning tables.
The second one just fixes it. So this is the whole
Right.
thing here. Okay. Thank you, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen of the council. Appreciate the time to speak to you. I know everybody's worked hard on this for a long time, and you know, I know we need to do something, but I think this needs more work. I don't think this is the right time to adopt this ordinance as it is written today. And I'm not only speaking as myself as a developer, but for citizens of this parish. It's going to increase the cost of lots drastically. I mean, we're talking about probably, if we have to do all the things that are specified in here, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, a lot of additional cost that somebody's going to have to buy, and all this is going to be passed on to the new homeowners. What we're doing here is we're taking out net developable areas is what we're using to use the number of lots that we can develop, and we're taking out wetlands. Of course, you know, you can mitigate wetlands, and wetlands that are not mitigated is what he's saying, but we're also taking out pipeline right-of-ways that we can't use, so we're going to lose some land that we can use in our net developable area to do the subdivision. And then if we got to do a park, say we're doing a 100-lot subdivision, and in Ascension Parish, good developable land costs you between $40,000 and $60,000 an acre. So let's just use 50,000 as a rule of thumb here, and say we got to donate 2 acres to a park. Well, that's $100,000 that I got to donate, or developers got to donate to a park. Then he's going to lose 3 lots, so he's going to lose 3 lot sales at $50,000 apiece, so that's another $150,000. And then to do the walking trails and everything to connect this thing and plant all the trees that are required and do some of the things that are required to do in this park, you're going to spend $400,000 before you know what's happening. And when the developer spends this kind of money developing this, he's going to also want to make some profit on what he does. So you're looking at between $6,000, $7,000 in additional cost per lot to sell lots in a new subdivision this year. But the biggest thing is that the homeowner association has to maintain all this. The typical homeowner association dues in this parish today are about $250 a year. But if we got to maintain parks, if we got to maintain sidewalks, you're looking at $2,000 to $2,500 a year for homeowner association dues. And some people say, well, I got a $450,000 house, man, I'd love to have all these amenities. Well, that's only 1% of the population in this parish lives in a $450,000 house. The rest of us live in $150,000 to $200,000 houses, is the majority of the housing. So what you're doing is you're getting in a position that we doing, you're not going to have I don't want to say low-income housing, but you're not going to have relatively inexpensive housing in this parish anymore. All this could be is upper-end housing. And I think there's some workable solutions in here, but I don't think this ordinance is ready to adopt, and I wish I had more time to speak, but I know they're fixing to cut me off. But there's a whole lot more I could say about this, but I just don't think this thing is in this format is ready to adopt as an ordinance today. And I hope that you would look at it. If you adopt this thing today, this is really nothing but a mandated tax from you that nobody gets a chance to vote on. That's going to cost a lot of homeowners in this parish a lot of money. And if everybody wants parks, I wish you'd give them an opportunity to vote on parks if they wanted to. I don't think if they had to pay for it that they would vote for it. But if you mandate it, there's no existing homeowner in this parish would vote to pay an additional tax to do parks, just like they won't pay for the streets or everything else. But what you're doing is you're mandating a tax on somebody today that's not here. They don't have
Sir.
they don't have a say-so in it. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Chair would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close.
A motion to close by Councilman Johnson, a second by Councilwoman Cazzo. Chair would entertain a motion to move the ordinance.
So moved.
Motion by Councilwoman Cazzo,
Second.
second by Councilman Johnson. Before I open up the floor for discussion, I had asked Mr. Chafisi if he could come and give us a background on some of the thought process, and this has been heavily discussed and worked through for a long time with the planning commission, planning staff, and very many other people. So, Mr. Chafisi, if you would please take a moment to kind of give us some background on this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the council, President Martinez, staff members, and citizens of Ascension Parish. I'm Gasper Chafisi. As our Chairman, Mr. Sanji, couldn't be here tonight, it's my honor to represent the Planning and Zoning Commission to present our thoughts on the proposed revisions to the Ascension Parish subdivision regulations. Also here tonight from the Planning and Zoning Commission is Josh Orey. I'm not sure I saw anybody else come in tonight. Several are out of town. The Commission's aware of the fact that Ascension Parish has for some years now enjoyed an unprecedented growth in population with expectations that that growth will continue. And I use the word enjoyed with the full understanding that this growth has and will continue to present challenges to the council with regard to our infrastructure. We are happy to see the council is diligently working on our transportation, drainage, and wastewater challenges, in addition to enhancing our recreational facilities. There is one area that the Commission believes we can help to positively impact the future of Ascension Parish and of our citizens, and that is with respect to future development of major subdivisions. At the beginning of this year, we instructed our Director of Planning and Development to present us with a proposal for changes to our subdivision regs that would be consistent with the goals of the current master plan and land use plan, and that would also enhance the aesthetic qualities and general amenities of future subdivisions, much like that which is done in other parts of the country. So at a regular meeting of March 13th, Mr. Compton provided us with a proposal for revisions to our current subdivision regulations. And we began our discussions. We talked about keeping the net density, about requiring different lot widths in major subdivisions, about preserving minimum buffers, about trails and recreation areas, trees, and so forth. And we decided to discuss that further at the following meeting and asked the director to add some justification for the changes and to provide some more background information to us. At our meeting of April 10th, we again visited it and discussed the proposed revisions with the justifications provided. We voted to carry that discussion on to the next meeting for presentation by the staff. At our meeting of May 8th, staff presented the proposed revisions, and our chairman, Mr. Sanji, stated that this item should be placed on the next regularly scheduled Planning Commission agenda to continue to revisit and work through these items. At our July 10th meeting, Mr. Compton presented the proposed ordinance, DC 13-7, the one prior to this one, revisions to the development code, etc. The commission voted to place the ordinance revision on the next regularly scheduled Planning Commission agenda for public hearing. Then at our August 14th meeting, the ordinance was presented. The revisions to the ordinance were explained by staff, a public hearing was held, and two developers spoke of their concerns about the revisions, prompting some additional consideration. The commission voted to place the ordinance with revisions and concessions made on our next agenda as a public hearing once again. We wanted to take more time to study what had been presented and discussed. So at our September 11th meeting, the revised ordinance was presented and the changes were explained, and a public hearing was held, and two local developers spoke, one generally supporting the changes with some reservations, and the other generally opposing the changes. The commission then voted unanimously to recommend to the Parish Council approval of the proposed ordinance before you, DC 13-9. Over the course of the past 7 months, we've seen a lot of support for these changes, and we have listened to every argument in opposition to these revisions. Most of the arguments were from developers and were related to complaints that adding amenities such as sidewalks and trees and parks were unnecessary, were going to cost the developers too much, and ultimately run up the cost of the lots and the homes. And some good points were made by these developers, prompting us to make some concessions to the developers for the points they made. And we changed the originally proposed ordinance. Believe me, there is no hidden agenda here. All the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Planning and Development Director are trying to do is to suggest improvements to the quality of life for future homeowners in Ascension Parish by offering amenities that I certainly wish I had in my own subdivision, such as sidewalks and parks. For homebuyers who cannot or would rather not purchase a home in a new subdivision developed in accordance with this proposed ordinance, there are over 923 subdivisions in Ascension Parish currently, with approximately, this is a guess, 20,000 homes or lots in those subdivisions. Those are only homes in subdivisions, not homes that are outside of subdivisions. So there are, in Ascension Parish, these will not be affected by this change. So there are a lot of opportunities for people who would rather not or cannot move into one of these new subdivisions with the amenities we discussed. There are a lot of other opportunities in Ascension for other purchases and for other residents, and for first home buyers especially. Your Planning and Zoning Commission is proud to present this ordinance to the council with the culmination, it's a culmination of work by the commission and a very talented staff over the past 7 months. We know that you will give this your serious consideration. We thank you for your attention on this, and we would be happy to answer any questions that you might have now.
Okay, Chair would open up the floor for discussion. Councilman Lonsong?
I agree. I think parks, trees, where your garage is going to be, whether it's on the side of your house, in front of your house, behind your house, I don't think that's decisions that we as a government have any decision in making. That should be a selling point for developers. If I'm a home buyer and I want to buy a house that's in a subdivision that has a park or has those sidewalks or has trees in my yard, and you don't have them in yours, I'm not going to buy a house in your subdivision. But that option should still be there for somebody else that doesn't want to. I can speak from experience in this. When I bought the house I live in now, I had 3 nice big oak trees in my front yard. A lot of people would like that. I didn't necessarily like them for one reason. I couldn't get any sun on my yard. I couldn't grow any grass. So I had to spend $1,200 to cut down one of my trees. About 6 months later, one of them got struck by lightning. It was then started to rot, became a danger of falling on my house. I've got roots that have pulled my sidewalk up. So I had to go spend another $1,800 to take that one down. So in addition to a cost, if you've got a homeowner or a home buyer that buys one of these homes and they're already going to have this extra $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 added to their cost, if they don't want those trees, what do they have to do on the backside? They got to go spend $1,000 to $2,000 per tree to pull them out of their yard, which adds another $4,000 to $5,000 to the cost of the home they had to buy. It's the numbers that Mr. Aguilar were given. I think they were. You started to talk about the rising costs, and I think what you, in effect, will do on that is you price the working class out of buying any kind of new homes in our parish whenever you start to add those type of costs. I know I couldn't afford a home that's being built now, especially with these regulations, for sure. So I don't think that this is our job to be doing these things. I think for our subdivision regulations, what we should be looking at is ways to regulate the mitigation of the additions to our infrastructure and those things, and not so much this aesthetic stuff or what amenities you have in your subdivision. Again, the market's always going to correct itself. If you don't have something in your subdivision that I want in a house I'm going to buy, I'm not buying from you. And if enough people were like that, then you won't sell any houses, you won't make any money, and you'll sell to somebody else, or you'll go bankrupt, one of the two. But the market will correct itself in those things. I don't think it's our job to do that. And on top of that, we're discussing right now in Finance Committee about looking back at impact fees again. So now on the front end, we're going to add all these additional costs on homeowners, and then on the back end, we're going to go add a whole bunch of costs again with impact fees on developers that are then going to be passed on to the homeowner. And now you're pricing out even another class of people that are going to be able to afford those lots. And in my opinion, I don't think that's what we're here to do. I don't think we're here to only give an option of old homes that have been around and lived in to people that we're trying to attract in with all these new plants and new businesses that are coming. Does that what we want to tell them is you can come move here and work here, but if you're making a middle class salary, you can't afford any of our new homes, so go buy an old one that somebody else can move out of and come move into one of these. I don't think that's a very good message.
Councilman Joseph?
Yeah. At first, I looked at this and I love sidewalks. Have no problem with sidewalks. But parks, you know, we have a tend to build a park in a subdivision, and when we can't take care of them, we say, hey, councilman, look, I got a deal for you. We're gonna donate this park for you because you don't have one nowhere else. You know, once again, we a politician, we do that. You know, we make ourselves look good, we get a park. I disagree with that portion of it because that's a private park now for that subdivision, for the have-not don't have. And I have to agree with Councilman Alonso on that. We putting ourselves in a situation after reviewing this that the have gonna have and the have-not is not gonna have nothing. We already know, we don't believe in this parish here, low moderate income homes. Now you putting low moderate income home completely out of the picture. And in my district, I haven't had a subdivision built in my district in over 30 to 40 years. And now you're gonna put these things on them? I would never get in. I would never, I wouldn't be able to afford it. I love your plan, but it's not for my district. It's not for my constituents. You just went a little bit too far overboard for me. I oppose it.
I'd like to make ask some questions, actually, of Ricky or Mr. Chafisi, regarding that concern with the cost, you know, of doing this rising to put those lower middle income homes out of reach. I personally think that that's, while that's definitely a concern, I think is overblown from the conversations that I've had with developers and builders, which I've had many regarding this. When we talk about parks, first of all, the minimum, this is about setting minimum standards. Yes, you can have nice parks that are like parks like we would think of them, but really this is, the bare minimum is about having green space and trees and some benches. That's the minimum. So I don't think that is a huge increase in costs, and you can even use some of the net developable area, 50% of it that you couldn't develop on, to include in your calculation for the space. The other thing is around sidewalks. So I've heard between $400 and $600, about $500 per lot. If you're in a $100,000 house, $150,000 house, which I would consider, you know, those working class people. Heck, I live in a house that's cost that and is valued for that. You factor that in, that $500 in over the course of a 30-year note. And that's if that's if it's even passed on. I mean, the developers are gonna find every developer I've talked to about this has figured out a way that they're still gonna make money. I mean, this has been about, and they have to, they're an important part of this community. But this is about having minimum standards, in my opinion, for how we want our future subdivisions to be built. I mean, sidewalks are a no-brainer to me. Every time I get more calls about speeding than and safety concerns probably than almost anything else. And people are very upset that they can't walk down the street without having cars in the middle of the street. So I think because I hear the concerns personally about the costs, but I think when you start diving into the details of how far this has really come back in terms of compromises and working with developers and builders on an actual plan, I think that this is the costs are not going to be that expensive. Homeowners won't feel that. Developers will adjust and figure out this is the same kind of arguments we hear. We've heard historically in the past, be it about zoning, be it about building codes, you name it. Every time we hear the same arguments about, you know, we don't need this, it's going to be too expensive, we're going to price people out. I mean, we have 10,000, you know, the latest, yes, it's not definite with Shell, but regardless of everything else that's coming, and if Shell does come, we have lots of people that are going to come here, and they're going to be in all income levels. So we are poised for a second phase of growth in Ascension Parish, and I think we just need to get serious about having some standards comments with that.
Mr. Councilman, can I make one,
Yeah,
Mr. Chairman?
I'll get back to you in just a second. I already recognize Councilman Sauerland.
I'll try to be brief, Gasper. I appreciate what the Planning and Zoning Commission has done. Trust me, I served there for a year before being voted in as the District 4 councilman, and it's not an easy task, and a lot of times you're in basically a no-win situation. I was at one of the meetings, Gasper, as you know, not all of that y'all had, and I remember there was controversy on that one just about what kind of tree, and asking Mr. Compton, will you come back and tell us what's permissible? And I noticed in here, you know, depending on whether it's a lot or whether it's which you're calling a park space tree versus a lot tree, it's anything from a cherry bark to an overcup oak to a nuttail to a Sherman oak, half of these species I don't even know. There's all kinds of cypresses and elms and other things. And I just want to make a comment or two about that and about this idea of minimum standards and trying to sort of legislate for all the people, one size fits all. I'm frankly a tree person, and so is my wife. In fact, I've got a professional greenhouse in my backyard. It's more put there to keep from losing money every year from when the cold kills everything, but it's a cycle. You just buy it again, and you go to Home Depot and you buy another tree. And in fact, I took one just this week back with their 1-year guarantee. Good company, they took it back because it died. Forever, it seems like planting trees. Hurricane Katrina knocked out, I have 136 trees on my lot, knocked out like 7 of them. My wife made me buy 7 replacement trees. Entergy did a foolish thing and cut a tree down that they didn't have permission to do so. They wound up paying $1,200. So I know these costs are real, and the tree's not even as big as some of these minimum standards that I'm seeing in here to replace that tree. But I have a problem with the whole idea about the standards and that we should legislate what the people want. I feel more like the market and the people will tell you what they want. Councilman Lawson mentioned, for example, back to trees that, you know, they produce, and I've called LSU constantly, all my former professor friends in the agronomy department and horticulture and elsewhere at plant pathology, and says, I can't get the grass to grow. Trees, shade things, it's a mess. Help me. I've got pine needles all over the place. Again, I'm the tree person, and I'm satisfying what I like in my wife. I've got neighbors down the street have no trees. A developer comes in, and if you're not a tree person, you have it all wiped out, pretty much, especially if it's in the place of the building site. You know, I realize you're talking about this more as an amenity to the front, which would look pretty like a sidewalk and everything else, but when you start doing that, you know, I think it's like Paul Simon said, one man's ceiling is another man's floor, especially when it comes to trees. Some people love them. I'm forever picking up the pine needles. I'm trying to sell a pontoon boat right now. And I made the mistake to move from my backyard where I have some trees that don't make a mess to my front yard where I have a lot of pine trees. And the needles on it, I find myself power washing it every 2 or 3 days just because it's a mess. Of course, then my neighbors are coming down the street and they're saying, well, Doc, we'll pick up all this. I don't know if they're being polite because you know, you're not doing it frequently enough, or that they really want the pine needles to use as mulch around their flower beds. But again, I just have a lot of problems. I appreciate what's done here. I was wondering, do we have to go this far with it, though, with the trees and the parks and the stuff like that? I am also concerned, I think Mr. Aguilar presented good information back when you were all going through the process, and I'm not saying you ignored that in any way. Again, I know it's a difficult job, and he's presented some again tonight. Councilman Joseph spoke about that. I'd like to lend my voice to it as well. I don't want to see us, you know, making such regulations to where we price a lot of the people out of the market that might be coming here otherwise. So basically, I'm not overly happy with this request here this afternoon, and I don't, in its present form, I don't think I can support it. It's not to say if it came back in a different form, and I know we sort of like at the end right now, in the process and so forth, you know, that I would support it. But I do have concerns about, you know, us trying to tell people what they want. I'd rather see a builder build a house because that's what they wanted, or they don't want it. And then subdivisions, I'd have to ask, for example, why don't we have a subdivision right now that's got all this stuff in it right now? Is there a reason? Could that reason be that maybe people really don't want that? Or if some do want it, let's build one and as a test balloon or something and let them come and see if that's what they want. again, being an old diversity guy, you've got old people, you've got young people, and you're not going to satisfy everybody. I've got a grandmother who just passed not too long ago, and she didn't like the grass. Everybody wants green grass, right? She said, can I dig it all up, hon, and can I cement it and paint it green, just so I don't have to cut it? Of course, a lot of people say, well, maybe she should go into I hate the term old folks home, or I like the retirement community myself, or whatever, but my point is people differ greatly by their ages, by their ideas and everything. That's why I think why we have the controversy in this parish about smart growth, for example, or not. And in many ways, I've had some constituents that are aware of this tonight and saying, isn't this just smart growth all over again, but putting it in a different way? And I don't agree that it is, but it does have some elements of potential problems when you're telling me what diameter tree and how many and et cetera, and the cost, and this idea of turning it over to the homeowners association, they're just going to take care of it. I tell you what, people in my subdivisions are bugged right now to pay $50 or whatever it is. I may have misspoke, it might be $100 a month just to keep our little flower bed at the front of our subdivision taken care of where the sign is. So again, a little bit of problem supporting it in its present form because I think it overreached, but if it could come back, I might find myself in support. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Mr. Tracy, you have some comments?
Yeah, just a couple of thoughts. Thank you all for your input and your comments on this. We gave this, obviously, a lot of thought over a lot of time, and Mr. Aguilar and others gave their opinions, and we made I think, some good changes as a result of that input. One was reducing the number of trees that we required. When my wife, well, one of the other reasons I wanted to say this, when my wife and I moved back into Ascension happily 7 years ago, we were in California at the time, we wanted to buy a home. We lived in my daughter's home for a bit while we looked around. And my wife wanted a new home, first time in our 42 years of marriage that we would have had a new home. At the time it was 35 years, I guess. The only homes we found, the only subdivisions we found were large lot subdivisions with large homes. And we did ultimately bought a home on off Highway 74. One of the things we tried to accomplish with this ordinance was to do something, and really to force developers, if you want to use that term, to do something that we believe that residents in Ascension would like to see, not only the amenities of sidewalks and parks and trees, but a subdivision with different lot sizes. I would love to live in the subdivision I live in now in a smaller home on a smaller lot. It is not available to me. I appreciate Mr. Joseph's comments on accommodating the working class men, and I agree with that. I believe that this regulation will allow a mix of home sizes, of hopefully good quality homes, but a mix of home sizes in the same development. And that was one of the things we wanted to accomplish. Not everybody wants a 3,000 square foot home. My wife and I would love to get into about a 2,000 square foot home right now if I could sell my home, because it's just the two of us. And I think this kind of subdivision, this kind of change would accommodate that. You ask, why don't we have that? Why aren't developers doing that now? And you can ask the developers why. They've come up here and told you part of the reason. It costs them more to do it. Will they be able to sell? We're keeping the density the same. They're going to have the same number of people living in a subdivision of the same acreage. If I'm not mistaken, I don't want to speak out of turn, Ricky. I think that's correct, and you can ask him, Ricky, technically, the details of that. But our point was to allow the developers to have every opportunity to make the money they're making now, but to give the citizens of Ascension, those who who would like to see the amenities we're talking about, have that opportunity to buy a home in that sort of subdivision. So, anyway, that's my comments. Thank you, though.
Councilman Todd Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking at, from A all the way to H with different housings. Give me a little bit of background of, say H housings is 50-foot lots. Is that, I know we got to come behind this and change the zoning.
That's, let me make point of clarification. I think,
Let me finish with it, Mr.
No, I think
President.
you're on the wrong one, is my point. I think you're on the wrong.
But it's all tied together.
Oh, okay.
That's what he just said at the beginning of this speech, before one of the contractors talked. And I guess my question is, I know you said the density is gonna be the same amount of houses per acre. You're gonna be able to put 3 houses per acre with 50-foot lots? That's all you're gonna put is 3 houses if it's medium intensity?
Well, the housing, the lot widths are mixed in the subdivision. But I'd like to ask Ricky to step up and talk about the
Are they mixed
density.
in a regular subdivision or spud, PUD, and all that?
No, these are regular major subdivisions.
In this new
What's considered a
development?
ma-
With the
yes.
new development?
Yes, sir.
So it's actually, going back to, we are approving spuds and PUDs by changing this ordinance.
I don't know if I.
Because we're going with different size homes. We might not be using commercial in there, but you're
Right.
going with different size homes throughout this mix. And I'm kind of like a lot of them that spoke here tonight. The working class people is taking everything they have to get in a home of about $150,000 to $200,000. And if your homeowner, they're not seeing the unforeseen cost of a homeowners association fee that may go from $250 a year to $200 a month. That's gonna be tacked on to that 30-year mortgage, like Mr. Laura was saying, that it might be just a minimum amount. I don't see it being a minimum amount because of all the amenities that they're having to put in these, and to keep up these parks. We know what it takes to keep up a park. We got parks all over throughout the parish, that's parish parks. It takes $1.something million a year to keep up our parks. And so, and as far as, you know, I hear the public tell me all the time, we need less government in our lives, okay? Well, they're telling us we can only put we can put this carport on this particular F housing, say, on the side. The other housing, you can only put it in the rear. Well, they're telling you where you can put your carport and what kind of tree you can plant, and you don't have no choice. An individual does not have a choice by going this route. And I think people want choices, and especially if they're gonna spend their life's earning on a home, could be a dream home for them, you know, and that's, so I think we're putting too much on the people right now.
Well, you make a good point about choices, Mr. Lambert, Councilman Lambert. And my point was that we really didn't have a choice when we moved back. There just weren't developers who were putting together packages or subdivisions like we're talking about in this ordinance. If you take a look at my subdivision, it's pretty simple, couple street, 3 or 4 streets, pretty squared off, big lots, retention ponds, and those are, the retention pond, if you call that an amenity, is the only amenity we have.
But in the past 8-10 years, when we had our big growth in Ascension Parish, the people was happy with that. That's what they wanted. And a lot of the homes and subdivisions out there, if you talk to them residents, they're still happy with what they have. They're not everybody disappointed in what they have and had purchased, regret buying what they bought. You know, it may be a few, but, you know, I know quite a few and go quite a few subdivisions, homeowner association. And they all, no complaints on the subdivision, and because they don't have sidewalks or anything like that. They knew what they had when they bought it. They had that choice. This way, you don't have any choice. Once the existing lots that's out there now disappear and gone, and everything's got to go this way, you don't have a choice.
Well, what we were hoping to do, knowing that growth was going to continue in Ascension, we're hoping to accommodate that growth. And we have to decide, you as a council have to decide how you're going to do that.
Yeah.
What are you going to allow to happen in Ascension Parish with regard to major subdivisions going forward? And as I said, we have a lot of subdivisions. If I could have talked my wife into buying an existing subdivision in a home that someone else had lived in, I would have done it. She wanted a new home because it's the first time we'd ever had one. But that wasn't my choice, but, I certainly conceded to her. But this is all about what we want this parish to look like going forward. We're not going to stop people from moving here or wanting to move here. We can continue, I suppose, to build subdivisions like we're building them now. Is that what you want to see for the future of Ascension Parish? That's really all this is about. We have an opportunity now because I think, if you want to speak in these terms, we're in a seller's market. we have an opportunity to do some things that we may not have had in the past, because there are going to be people who want to move here and will happily buy houses in such a subdivision that we're proposing. I am not for the government forcing anything down anyone's throat. Absolutely not. I'm not for that. And I hate to think about this that way. I want to think about this as being something that, if we're forcing it down anyone's throat, is probably the developers who would rather just do things cheaper and simpler than to do some things that we'd rather see in this parish. And that's all this is about.
But we do have something on the books as we speak to build a subdivision like this. There's a spud, there's PUDs.
True.
You have your different lot sizes, you have your sidewalks, you have your parks. It comes up. So if a developer wants to build that and they see a market for that, they can build that right now as we speak. But this is just putting, you know, and all the master plan and the smart growth that we went through all the public hearings on, the public, you know, was against what we bring it here today. And now we're just trying to move on it real quick and just sneak it on in, I feel. Because I've been to all them public meetings. We had 11 of them, I've been to 9 of them. And they wasn't for these little small homes. And then behind you, you got a big large home, but hey, that small home is gonna depreciate that big house in that same subdivision down the road. And that's what we are running into in some existing subdivisions today.
Okay.
I got several, one in my district and one in another district. I know that nice homes up front, where they develop the smaller homes and decide a new developer comes in and say, well, we're gonna put these size homes. And, you know, it's the same situation you're looking at right here. And a lot of people upset with it.
Okay, I have Councilman Johnson and then Councilman Shakespeare. Councilman Johnson.
Gasper, I don't know if you want to answer this or Ricky does, but in your opening remarks, you said that what you tried to do with this, or what was tried to do with this, was to meet the current master plan that was adopted many years ago, or something to that effect. Is that correct?
Well, we wanted to not be compliant with that. So we wanted to be compliant with the requirements, be consistent with what this parish has regulated in the past.
So I mean, what I'm counter or whatever, just to, I guess, offer a different perspective on some of this, because we've got some conversation going on that makes it believe that, you know, maybe this is something we're trying to sneak in, or this, that, and the other. You've outlined at least 6 months of meetings.
7 months.
7 months of meetings that y'all had, and it's going with the plan that's currently on the books that we have for the parish. I mean, that to me is something that says you're trying to work within what was asked of the people to do. And while these amenities may seem to be a lot, in my opinion, nowhere we're trying to tell the developer that you have to build this specific house on this specific kind of lot. We're basically giving them guidelines to what they can do with the piece of property to maximize the benefit, not only to their profitability, but also to the benefits of what the community can have within it. And I see, and that's how I'm interpreting this. I think, yeah, you are putting some conditions in there, but there's conditions in everything that you do. And I think you're stepping the quality up in what we're seeing in the subdivisions. Councilman Lambert mentioned about the PUDs and the SPUDs, and we do have those that come in, and those are still going to be options, correct?
Yep.
I see nothing in here that takes those away, but it basically breaks this down to the point of where it gives them more options to do that without having to go through those steps, which saves times. And to be honest with you, I haven't seen too many or any PUDs that have come up or SPUDs that have come up that haven't met with a lot of resentment or a lot of resistance on the part of the public or the nearby residents. So this is not getting around that, but it's something that's an alternative. And I think you brought up a couple of other good points. There are other subdivisions that are out there. There are private lots in areas that are not in subdivisions. So this is one portion of the overall development code, or things that, you know, if someone doesn't want to build that big of a house and doesn't want that big of a property, they can always go look and find a piece of property that's not necessarily in the subdivision and develop that. You can go in a subdivision that would be built along this line and buy a smaller or larger house and decide whether or not you want to, no matter what the fees are, and speculating what they're going to be today is far-fetched in my opinion, to just assume that whether they're $200 a year, they're going to turn out to be $200 a month or $200 a week or whatever. we don't know those answers, and until you get into that type of situation, you're not, unless somebody's got some information I haven't heard here tonight. So I think when you start looking at this, I think it gives us some options. It's not closing the door on anybody that wants to do anything with their money or with what they want to build as far as a house is concerned, but it gives us a certain amount of quality and what the people have been, I think, asking for, or at least going towards that. And so I think this is something that we can move forward to, and if we have some issues with it, we can always bring that back up later on and discuss them. But as it sits right now, I think we've had a lot of concessions on both sides of this to try to come to some consensus and somewhere in the middle. And because we've had these meetings with the developers and other folks and have come to this consensus, I'm going to support this initiative tonight. Thank you.
Councilman Shakespeare?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too am torn between the concerns of the different people, and as any issue you get to, there's two different sides to everything. And people that stand up here and says it's going to increase costs is absolutely right. The average that I've spoken to with developers is going to be about $5,700 a lot increase in costs. From what subdivisions come up to right now. When you increase cost, though, however you look at it on the other turn, you increase your value. And down the line, 10, 20 years from now, the value stays with you. Costs are gone. It has proven over the past, the values continue to stay with things. It tears people a little bit, the same people that are arguing against increased requirements for subdivisions, and that's what we're looking at, are the same people that come up here and oppose new subdivisions coming in right now every time they come here. I've been sitting up here for 10 years. Just about every time a new subdivision comes in with 100 houses or 200 houses or 300 houses, this place gets packed with people that are upset because the trees are torn down, their green space is taken away, people are walking on the road, not on the sidewalks, people are, they don't have recreation and parks for them to play in now because they're putting up a subdivision next to their house that they bought in before. And they want the government to do something about it. We're the government. They want us to tell them no. But if they meet our regulations now, we're usually obligated to say yes. So we're in this predicament to decide how many people come into Ascension Parish, because the amount of people that come here is going to be consistent with the demand and who decides to meet our regulations. And that's the choice that we have to make right now. How many more people do we want in Ascension Parish? On immediate growth, just like was said earlier, there's a buyer's market, a seller's market, and people are going to be moving in here now, and it's going to get a lot worse with very inadequate infrastructure that we have in road, sewer, and everything else. There was concern that we had before, and we heard it earlier in the 90s when they implemented zoning. And you heard rippling throughout the parish that there it goes, nobody's going to buy a house again in Ascension Parish. It costs too much, you're zoning people, and people still came. And they came in numbers that people continued to complain about the new people coming here. They did the same thing with when they did the building codes and required people to build according to wind standards and everything. They said it's going to cost too much for a house, and people still came, and people still bought a house, and people complained because new people came in here. They did the same thing with lot restrictions. They did the same thing with detention ponds. They did the same thing with the new regulation that FEMA puts on us that it's going to be too much and people are not going to move here, and they are. And it's just a question of, are we going to sit here and have an unlimited amount of people moving into Ascension Parish with inadequate infrastructure? Or, you know, and it's probably the difference between 20% increase and 18% increase in the next few years. So that's what we're looking at. One of the things by
doing things like such as this, if you look around Ascension Parish, and even though we get complaints on a daily basis, we don't have very much blight. If you go around other parishes, you'll see people that are taking old homes and fixing them up because they're marketable. They're taking older subdivisions and maintaining them and fixing them up because they're marketable. And I work in a number of other parishes, and that's not the case. And I think that's one of the reasons why, because we do have standards here that we meet, and so we do create a demand. The other thing is this, and I hear the concern on entry-level housing, and I think that's very important to have that here in this parish, and we do. We have 3 municipalities that are here. There's entry-level housing for people that live here. I have yet to see, to get a group of complainants, that people that live in Ascension Parish that cannot find a home that they can afford. There's homes here that people can't afford. So yes, it is a concern. There'll always be an area where it's going to be a balance, and we'll always, whoever is here is going to be making those decisions for the next 20 years. So the concerns are there. I do have a concern, and the question is, how many people does the people of Ascension Parish want to move in here in the next 5 years? And I think one of the big arguments is, well, what about Livingston Parish? They don't have any restrictions in anything. If you go in Livingston Parish right now, people are talking about zoning. People are talking about restricting the number of people moving in now because they're getting what we got years ago. And so they're starting behind the curve. So everyone has very valid points here. Everyone can make very good statements to their arguments, and I agree with just about everything everybody says, and it comes down to what we decide on how many people we're gonna wish to have in Ascension Parish with our infrastructure. So I'm not in total agreement with everything on this ordinance, and I would think if you took 100 people, you could not get one person that agreed with everything in this ordinance. That's why it's a compromise. But because a majority of it is here that I could accept, I think as a whole it's better than what we have now. And so for that reason, I would look to try to go forward with it and continue to address those issues, continue to modify those issues as they come up. And if we see that one thing's out of sync in a year from now, just like has been happening in the past, those things can be modified. So it's not an end-all, this is a continuous thing. But I think it's better than what we have now, and for that reason, I would support it.
Mr. Chair. Councilman Jessup. Councilman Jessup.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Shakes and I made a comment, and I totally disagree, and I have to make a comment on it. Because he's saying in this parish, if you cannot afford a home, go live in the municipalities. That's where your low-income homes, moderate homes are. You can't live in this parish outside those municipalities. I disagree with that. Totally. And in my district, if they can't afford a real stick-built home, they go buy a mobile home. And that only hurt us as a parish because we cannot get the tax dollars for it. That's not the way to look at this here. You get a stick built, you increase home value, and you increase your taxes. Mobile home do it. And what you're telling the have-not, the only thing you're going to be able to afford in this parish is an old rundown home or a mobile home, because you can't afford nothing else, because we're not building. Not in this parish. Go live in Gonzales, Downsonville, Sorrento. I disagree with that, totally.
Councilman Councilman Dempsey Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to hear from our parish president and also Mr. Compton.
It's interesting sitting up here, and I think I'm the only one that was around when we passed the building code. Basically, zoning also, but building codes, I distinctly remember going to Sanamo, to the fire department, and I thought I wasn't going to leave there. I thought I probably would have got hung, okay? So, because that was the sentiment of at that time, the people that were against building codes, and it was a tough. But you know, we sat down, we discussed it like gentlemen, and we came out with compromises. And I'm happy to say that we put it in place back in 93, maybe 92 even. That you know, without it today, I mean, the way it was explained back then was if Tommy Martinez built a house, if I built that house and I was going to stay in that house the rest of my life, if I could guarantee that, I wouldn't care what Tommy Martinez built that house of, he was going to stay there. But 99% of the time, you're not going to live there all your life. You're going to sell it, and that next person needs to know exactly what that was in that house, whether it was the aluminum wiring at that time that was allowable, those type things. So, you know, it's not just about what you think, it's about what needs to be done. And sometimes we have to do things that we don't like to do. And, you know, it wasn't a very popular thing, I can assure you. I don't know what, I was called communist, I was called a lot of things back then. And, you know, but we got through that period, and thank God we did, because without the growth that we had, you know, later on, without building codes, no telling what we'd look like. We'd look like Florida. Remember Winter Haven, Florida, when all the houses blew apart and those type things. So, you know, then we had to tackle zoning. I mean, that was a real tough issue. Similar, I mean, I can tell you, it was not a lot of kind words that was said back then. But again, when you look at zoning, you're actually protecting people's property values, because you're not allowing. I'd get calls all the time about, hey, they're going to want to build a cement factory next to my house. They built some. You can go to Swamp Road right there, the dust flying, those type things. So, you know, and I'd always use the deal, if somebody wants to come here and build a dynamite factory next to your house, they could do that too, if they could get the permits. So, you know, zoning protects that, and it protects your property values. I'm listening to the discussion here tonight, and, you know, I hear Oliver just talking about affordable housing. I mean, the way this was explained to me, I mean, I'm not an expert on any of this either, but was that if a developer had 40 acres, if he had 100 houses, he could build, let's say, 3 acres to a house. I mean, 3 houses to an acre. He could put 120 houses on that. Well, this way, he could still do the same by reducing the size of the lots, but would add the amenities to the sidewalks, the park, and the tree. So I don't see why you still couldn't build affordable, unless somebody can tell me different. That if you could still get the same number of houses there, 100 houses, at affordable price, that nobody says what size they have to be, but you can have smaller lots. So in that regards, I mean, I think that you can balance that out. Now, I'm kind of like Doc's grandmother. I mean, I'm not a big proponent of a tree, because I had a tree come right through my house and split it in half during Gustav. So I don't have any more trees. If you pass by my house, they got fruit trees. So if you require me to plant a fruit tree, I'm good with that, because it stays green. I can go eat some satsumas and looks pretty good. So, you know, same thing with grass. I'm not a big fan of cutting grass. I could, like I said, I kind of got the same philosophy, but you know, I know there's a lot of people that think different than I do, and I'm all for the environment, but that's just the way you think. So, you know, looking at this, I mean, there's pluses, there's minuses to anything that you do, and any decision that you make. Like I said, I'm not 100% sure that everything in this ordinance is right, but I'm sure that 100% is not wrong. So, you know, if you could always amend something if you pass it. You can always do that, go back and correct it as a body. Or you can take it under advisement and go over it and look at it, and if you want to come up with some kind of compromise from there. But again, it's choices to be made. I don't think that whatever choice you make is going to be a bad choice here, because I think that we need to look at what's going to happen in the future. We need to know what we want Ascension Parish to look like. But I don't think that it's going to stop the growth, whatever you do here. If you want to stop the growth, just go ahead and propose a moratorium on building. That's been done in the past too. So that's not the issue here. I think the issue is how you want the parish to grow in the future. Are you satisfied with the way it's grown in the past? That was kind of the arguments when we had all the other meetings with the master plan. So again, we're back to it's not the same, but you still got a choice to make on how you want this parish to look. So that's kind of my comments, and I don't know if I've answered anything, but
Appreciate it,
okay.
Parish President, but I'd also like to hear from Mr. Compton. For the last 7 months, you've been working on this. I'd like to know the pluses and the minuses and what we've helped the developer and what we've met on some of their requests and the urgency of this.
Sure. You know, I had a whole 1,000-slide PowerPoint presentation. I decided not to present just because I don't like PowerPoint. But this idea started on my plane ride from Florida to interview for this job. Because as I was reviewing the code, I questioned whether or not the parish felt that the only subdivisions that we wanted to have a quality sort of life, did we want those all to be PUDs, SPUDs, or T&Ds? Because that's all the code really talked about, was those types of subdivisions need amenities, but regular subdivisions, they don't need all that stuff. I want to dispute the comment that these regulations cost the developers any money. The regulations don't cost them a penny, because any developer worth his weight is going to do due diligence before he buys a piece of property. And he's going to know what he's going to pay per acre for that property. And he's going to know how many units he's going to get and the cost. And he's going to know at the end of the day whether or not he's going to make any money. Because that's what their ultimate goal is making money. And our question is, do we want to continue to build subdivisions that meet the bare minimum standards? Because developers historically have built the bare minimum. They've built a road. They provided a road that lots would front on, that they would build houses. When the idea was conceived, the thought was, how do we get better development in our subdivisions? What is better development? In my mind, as a degreed landscape architect, as a community designer for 12 years, how do you build and design better subdivisions? Well, the first thing is you get your kids out of the street. You put them on a sidewalk. The second thing is you provide a place for them to play, a park. And the third thing is you replace the tree canopy that was wiped out when they clear-cut the site. 3 things: sidewalks, parks, and trees. What do I have to give up to get that? Today, a developer, based on our standards, is getting about 2.2 units per acre, because our minimum lot size in residential medium is 70 by 150. When you do the math on a 100-acre site, 3 units an acre, they're allowed 300 units, but they're getting about 220. With this revision, by allowing them to reduce their lot size down, I'm arguing that they're going to go from 220 units to a lot closer to the 300 units that they're allowed. So that's a net gain of about 80 units. They're never going to exceed what the zoning map has said that they can do. And we also less out the net area that they're not using, that they're not including in their park system, that they cannot build houses on. We're trying to get to a carrying capacity of the land. When you talk about concessions that we've made, we had a lot of arguments about subdivision interconnectivity. You won't see that in the code anymore. We're not going to require a new subdivision to tie into an existing subdivision. Why? Because people don't want that. So we eliminated it. The concession for net developable area was, we're buying property that you're not allowing us to count. So we revised the language to say, if you use those areas, those wetlands, those power line easements, those lakes, if you use them as part of your recreation system, you put a trail, you put a pier, you can now count that. That's now usable land that you can count toward your density. Setbacks was a big discussion, and we'll get to that in the next item, but we had a discussion over how do we deal with setbacks on smaller lots, and the agreement we came to, the concession we made was 10% of your width is now your setback. So if you're a 60-foot lot, your setback's 6 feet. If you're a 70-foot lot, your setback's 7 feet. 10% of your width, that was a concession we made. I had a developer take me to his property because I had written the language that I wanted all trails, all of the pedestrian system to be paved. And he argued, we can build a good trail. We can build a good unpaved trail. Come look at it. And that's what we wrote in the code. We said, if you meet this standard for an unpaved trail, that's what you can build. The code that we've written is about building a place. We've built disposable subdivisions for the last 4 decades. Subdivisions that people are not going to be willing to tear down a house and build a new house. Why? Because they just as soon move to the next neighborhood and build a new house. Because there is no there. There's no reason to want to rebuild in that community. And I'm saying, I want the next 13,677 parcels. That's how many we have left that are not part of a subdivision. I want those to be built better. I want those communities to have a there. And that's it. Parks, sidewalks, and trees. The costs are minimal compared to the benefits.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you, Rick.
Councilman Satterley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank all the speakers, the President, Ricky, and everyone that spoke. Gasper, I want to revisit something, though, that what the Commissioner had to say, too, because I think it's really important here. Out of all this discussion, I think he literally put the topping on the dropping. That's an old poultry term and something he said, and I'm going to quote that in a minute. But the setup is this. We need to consider that, as a government body, when we legislate all of these amendments, and I hear Mr. Compton loud and clear, parks and trees and so forth and so on. And when we do that into our subdivision codes, to me, this is akin to, like we're seeing in Washington, D.C., this government elitism attitude. We're telling the folks of Ascension Parish, we know what's best for you.
Sure.
Reminds me of a cartoon I saw in a paper just a few days ago on global warming, where a whole bunch of the folks in D.C. are standing under the Capitol Rotunda, and it's a snowstorm, and their teeth are chattering, and they're going, trust me, because the snow is falling on them. I'm sure global warming is real. Well, Mr. Chafisi said this, quote, it's all about what we, and I emphasize his word, we, want this parish to be, in other words, to look like in the future. But I have to ask, who are we? I'm not sure if he was implying the government of the parish, or the people, or hopefully best everyone together. Now, I've already talked about it, and the President's talked about it, and others have talked about it. There's obviously big differences in preferences, tree person, not tree person. So I won't whip that to death anymore. But I haven't spoke about parks. Recreation Committee, that's where I served before I was moved to strategic planning. I remember one statistic that sticks out in my mind. Parish paid for and conducted a survey asking the citizens about the various parks and their use of the same. And one of those numbers was striking. It was something like 60 to 70% of the citizens said they never even used a park once in a whole calendar year. When I walked my district, Southwood Village, off of Highway 73, there's a park back there. At least a half a dozen or more people told me, Doc, if you're elected, can you have this park shut down? Why would you want to do that? There are basketball goals over there and other amenities and things for the children to play in. Well, because it's become a drug haven. It's nothing more than vandalism. And on a committee, I saw a lot of that. We were constantly trying to find money in the budget to fix all the vandalism. So these things are not simple. And it doesn't say, and I'm not saying that's the reasons we shouldn't have any parks, whatever, okay? But let's go back to the age thing again. Old folks, they don't want parks, bicycle paths. Young folks do. How can we satisfy them both? The answer is we can't. But I believe we can let the market do the best job it can, like we have been doing, to satisfy both of these entities, as opposed to us legislating, and what I would believe is sort of an elitist type way of doing things. Hey, let's tell everybody how many trees, how many parks, this, et cetera. And even this idea that that's going to preserve us in the next 13,000 parcels as we develop it, et cetera, trust me, all this stuff to me is flavor of the month. By the time you build something or do something, it's like the hemline, okay? The hemline on women's skirts. It's set at a certain height. Who sets it? We don't here. Overseas in Europe. And by the time they lift it up and we've got a mini skirt and we copy it here in America, they done drop it down like granny dresses. And then vice versa again. I'm not so much into me too. Let's do this. This is the right thing to do, because it's not perfect for everyone, and one size will not fit all. So again, what Gasper said, it's all about what we want this parish to look like in the future. Who's we? What do we want?
I want to make a comment about the government elitism, because I keep thinking that this is a preview of what's to come on sewer that we've been talking a whole lot about lately. And I find it interesting that in that very instance for sewer, we are going to be telling people that it's not good enough that you have a MODAD on your property, like I do personally, that I just put in, because it's not discharging at the level we want. Our whole job as elected officials is to decide what the balance is between individual rights and what is in the best interest of the overall community. That's some of the great comments I think that President Martin has made. And so we have to decide what that water quality standard is going to be for sewer. And, you know, is that going to cost people more money to get to there? Yeah, it probably is. So let's just be honest about what our job really is. It is to set those overall standards for the community. What is in the best interest of the community versus what's in the best interest of the property. I don't think that, of the individual property owner. I don't think that's government elitism. I think that's doing the job the people elected us to do. Any other comments? Councilman Johnson and Councilman Kluwat.
I think one of the things too, and like Councilman Lord just said, it's a balance. If we truly believe that government has no place and the free market will set the tone for what developments take place in the parish, why do we have zoning? Because in reality, free market is nothing. And so with that, a developer goes and buys a piece of property, builds a subdivision. With that, another person goes over there, buys a piece of property next to that subdivision with $70,000, $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 homes in it, $400,000, $500,000, $1 million homes in it. He puts a sandblast yard next to it. What's to stop him? And so this is truly a balance. Is it 100% correct? No, I don't believe it is. Are there going to be some things that I think we'll probably have to come back and revisit in the future? And the answer to that is yes. But is it better than where we are today? And I think it is. I think it offers people more options than what they have available to them today. If the free market, if we believe that a simple thing such as a sidewalk would be something that the free market would put in, where are they? Show me one subdivision in this parish that has a sidewalk in it. Show me one parish in this subdivision that you can go on and the kids are not riding bicycles in the street or walking on the street to get to wherever they're going to. It's not there. Now, I don't know about it. If there is, I'd like to see it. Unless it's been in a PUD or a SPUD or something that was negotiated through the parish to have that put in there in a traditional subdivision, traditional neighborhood, I don't believe there's one in the parish. And so while I do agree, I'd like as much as possible to have the free market set the tone for these type of things in the parish, I don't see it happening. And so by that regard,
If you want to sit here and say the government will lead us and the government's in your business on a daily basis, that is what zoning is, in my opinion. It is a balance between, like Councilman Lohr said, my individual property rights to do what I want to do with my property versus how it affects my neighbors. And so with that being said, this is something that going through we and the developers on one end, the people that have brought forth concerns and so forth and so on, and looking at what our development code is today, how do we want to make this place better for the next generation? I think that's one of the things that we're about as well. It's about making it better for the people that come behind us, my kids, my grandkids, whether it's sewer, whether it's water, whether it's subdivisions, development, roads, whatever. One of the things that I try to do on a daily basis is figure out whenever I'm making one of these decisions, how can I make this place better for the people that come behind me? And right now, I'm willing to take the chance on this. Thank you.
Councilman Fulott?
Yeah, I'd just like to recap. I don't have a lot of large subdivisions in my district, but I'm going to tell you this. We talk about government, involved and government trying to force the hand of the people on how the subdivisions are built and how they're going to live in the subdivisions. I'm going to tell you, we didn't have a lot of government before with a lot of these subdivisions built, but when something goes wrong in the subdivision, you got a lot of government there because we all get calls. You get calls, but this is not right. That's not right. Homeowners associations are not developed. The developer didn't do this, didn't do that. People think that they have a parish road in their subdivision, it's a private road. Things like that. All kind of things. How this is going to be built, what this guy's doing next to me. All right? I do like trees, by the way. I have nothing against a tree, and I love them, to be exact. And matter of fact, I got one in my backyard that when it falls, I might think about selling my house, all right? I'm not like President Martin has. He got hit by his trees, so he has a different outlook. But I'm going to tell you, we're not just talking about, I've heard such craziness. Somebody came to me with, reports on the radio about Agenda 21, United Nations, crap like that. We're local government. We're not the federal government. You can reach out and touch us. Everybody knows where I get gas. They know where I go buy groceries. They see me all over the place, okay? All right? We're here to represent people. Sometimes it's tough. Tommy, you named some tough times. The regulations, the zoning, all right? I don't see a large group of people here, residents, that plan on building a house that are here against this, okay? All right, we're hearing, and through some of the other meetings, have heard from developers, all right? I do agree with the fact that when somebody develops, they're gonna do it, it's a business. I work for a living, they're gonna try to make a profit. I want them to make a profit. I want them to be successful. But I don't think that having a sidewalk or saying putting a tree somewhere, and we keep talking about parks, we're not talking about Funfair Park, if anybody's old enough to remember that. We're talking about a green space where the kids could get together and throw a ball, ride a bike. I've heard the comment about young people want walking paths, old people don't want walking paths. Well, I can tell you what, they got a park on the side of my house where they got a lot of old people walk around, all right? The track at the high school next to me, they got some old people walk around, so pretty much when you get to be my age, you need to start walking, doing something. So this is not any cookie cutter. And I'm gonna tell you this is just the way I was raised, is the fact, I think it's borderline prejudice and somewhat hypocritical when you're gonna tell me that you got a $250,000 house and you think that somebody that buys a $150,000 house, an 1,800 square foot or something, rather than a 4,000 square foot, that they're a lower class person, the neighborhood's going to hell in a handbasket, and my house, I can't sell my house for nothing. Well, I'm gonna tell you what, I come from working class people. They got some good people out there that make 50 grand or less a year, all right? Within these ordinances, there's a place for them to live in a nice subdivision that has a sidewalk and has a park, and they can afford that house, all right? And they can be inspired by the guy with the $400,000 house or the 4,000 square foot house, all right? This, you know, it's just amenities. And it's putting some challenges in front of the developers. And I know good and well that it is going to cost the person that's buying the house a little bit more. But I think the prices of homes are going up anyway, and, you know, there's a certain rate there. I'm just telling you that the overall price of a total development to drive that cost up, Ricky brought the perfect example up. There's been concessions here to use unusable space to add into the numbers that wasn't before. I would love to see the fireman, the policeman, the school teacher, the starting out plant worker, those guys in those first home builders be able to go and move into a very nice subdivision with curb and gutter, sidewalks, playground for their children, or green space, or a walking path, or a little fishing pond, okay? Because I'm going to tell you what, folks, those amenities have been pretty much regulated through the way it's been developed, well, not regulated, excuse me, the way it's been developed, to where that's the elite group of people that live in the house, the places with those amenities, okay? All right? So, I don't see any problem with this. I do guarantee this, that we're going to come 6 months from now and, hey, you know, we got too many trees. We're asking for too many. The zoning commission is going to be asked to come back to us to take a look at this, take a look at that, different things. But it's not the end of the world. I know I got some good friends, I got some family that would love to be in a nice place like that and even have the amenities. Because if you think that somebody's building a subdivision with the $150,000 home that got any amenities, they're not doing it, all right? I think this is a good place for people to enjoy, both all social classes. Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Councilman Alonso?
Yeah, I just wanted to address real quick something that Councilman Shake Snyder and then President Martin has said, and Councilman Johnson just alluded to it too. We're in something that all three of them said. They compared building codes, which is about safety, and zoning, which is about, you know, not putting a sandblast in your yard or a dynamite plant right next to your home, which is about safety, to the aesthetics of how many trees you have and where your garage is. And that's not a fair comparison whatsoever to bring into this. That's kind of trying to sway that in people's eyes without really looking at the facts of it. You're comparing safety to what's aesthetics and what someone should have a choice of how their property looks or what things they like on their own property.
Councilman Turner?
Well, we have a plan sitting here in front of us, but we have a few councilmen who appear to be against it, but they're not offering an alternative. What I would like is for us to push it back maybe a month on the vote and give those councilmen a chance to put forward an alternative plan, because I hate when we have a discussion and you're against it, but not offering an alternative to what it should be. So give them a month to come with an alternative, a little longer than that. They have no alternative. The point of saying no, to me, this doesn't make sense if you don't have an alternative plan.
Okay. Did you want to offer that as a motion? or-
Yes.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilman Turner to delay this for a month, and with a challenge to those who are against to come back with ideas.
Second.
Second by Councilman Joseph. Councilman
Discuss-
Lambert.
You know, for as alternative, I think we need to leave it like it is. I'm happy with it. That's my suggestion. I don't see any issue with it right now. I don't have anybody asking me for sidewalks, trees, parks in their subdivision. So if you're looking for an answer from me, that's mine. Leave it alone. Leave it like it be.
Okay,
I can
Councilwoman
give you that
Cazzo.
answer now.
I just wanted to mention that I get many comments made to me from people who move into North Ascension, that they are very disappointed that they do not have this to choose from. their children are forced to play in the street. They do not have any green space. And this parish for many, many years has been considered a wonderful community. But community means people have to be able to get together. If you can't get together, if you drive in your house, put the garage door down, go in your house, and you don't have a sidewalk, and you don't have any place in your subdivision for people to gather as a community, it's too crowded now, and is going to be more crowded. We're going to lose our sense of community. We will not know each other. And when we get to that point, we're going to really be in a disappointed place. I get lots of comments from friends who move in that they wish they had a sidewalk. Sidewalks go back to the early 1600s. They go back to 1895 in this country, most I can detect, in Boise, Idaho. Those people hundreds of years ago knew that they needed a sidewalk for safety. To ask that we let the market correct itself, to me, it seems unreasonable. We've waited 40 years. The market has not corrected itself. Given the opportunity to build the kind of houses that developers have been building, or the kind that we are asking them to build, surely they're going to choose the former. It's cheaper. It is our responsibility, and I think that we will have failed miserably if we do not improve the quality of our subdivisions going forward for those folks who will be moving in here, and frankly for those young people who are going to be growing up in this community and who will, if there is no place with good amenities and great opportunity for their children to develop that same sense of community that they had, then they will leave, and we will lose our young people. This state has suffered from the outsourcing of our young people. This parish has not, to my knowledge, had that problem in the past. But the people that I meet in subdivisions today, their kids are having a hard time having the idea they want to stay here. Because what they're looking for now is some amenities. Young people want parks, young people want bike paths, and they want trails, and they want, for God's sake, they want sidewalks. And I think the older folks, I mean, I'm starting to get in that category, and I'm very fortunate that I'm able to travel around this country a good bit, and the places that I see that I want to live have sidewalks and a park where I could walk to, and a bike path. My husband and I want to ride our bikes. It has to happen in Alabama. If we want to walk on a sidewalk, it has to happen in Alabama. If we want to be able to have garbage that, is hauled off the way it should be at a price we can afford, we have to do that in Alabama. Now, that ought to scare you. We have an obligation in this parish to improve the quality of life for the citizens who are coming here and for the young people who are growing up here and who will, if we provide them with the right kind of subdivisions, stay. Otherwise, they're going to move into areas where such amenities exist.
Okay, Councilman Sarley.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be productive to have many more rounds of this, Mr. Chairman, but if you just bear with me. Councilman Lawson said something, and I appreciate it, because this idea about a sewer or zoning and how could we be a hypocrite and so forth as it relates now to these proposed subdivision ordinances, that's ridiculous. I mean, I'm going to be stronger than what he said. I mean, we all know, we've all been through ethics training and otherwise, that we're here to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the people. How can you make those comparisons, though, to trees? It's just apples and apples and oranges to me. And the idea that pointing out that there's exceptions to the rules in the young and old argument. Certainly, there's some old people who would want to walk on a path or ride a bicycle yet and so forth. Certainly, I could afford to do that. You can just look at my size and see that, okay? But I made it as a generality statement because it is a general statement. I'm not trying to be an ageist here or anything. I think if you really looked at it on its face, the vast majority of old people would say, I don't want that. Vast majority of the young, I agree with Councilman Castle, would say, I do want that. All I'm trying to say is that some people are going to, quote, and I hate this, going to win, some are going to lose in this. But I don't know how we can, and that's the part that was in Gaspar's comment, it's all about what we want the parish to look like in the future. How do we tell the people who aren't going to use it that they just have to pay for it? I would prefer, in answer then to my very respected colleague, Travis Turner, challenging the people who are against it, that would include me, to come up with an alternative. I think we presented an alternative. Todd Lambert spoke of it. It's the status quo. I don't think we should be trying to fix something, frankly, that ain't broke. Mr. Compton said the idea actually came to him flying over here to interview for a job from Florida. I'd have to ask, did you even take a look around, first of all, to see if it was a good idea or is what the people around here might want? And by the way, none of us may really know. We always are handicapped by how many constituents call or talk to us, and we're always challenged when you're on one side of the fence or the other. Are you sure? Doc, are you sure that's what your people want? Well, let's be honest, no. No more than you are. When you sit here and say, well, I've talked to a whole bunch of developers, I've talked to a whole bunch of people, surely this is what they want. Oftentimes, unfortunately, we legislate something and then the people come out of the woodwork. You could even conclude tonight, where are the public? A lot of them tell me they're frustrated, don't feel like it'll do any good. 3 minutes ain't a whole lot of time, but all of the rest of us can just babble on and babble on about it. But again, I don't think we need to be telling people what to build, how to build it, and so forth. I think that's quite different than the sewer. When you're talking about disease and noxious odors and people getting sick and mosquitoes and potential for West Nile, and frankly, there's big other issues there. Everybody knows, I mean, the federal watchdog agencies aren't going to tolerate it, at least that's what we keep saying, right? But they're not going to come here and tell us how to put trees or parks. Thank you.
Okay,
Mr.
Chair.
Real quick, this is something that I'll be quite honest with you. We can sit around here and they've been working on it 7 months. It's not something that just dropped out of the sky yesterday. Everyone here is looking at compromises. That this paper is a big compromise. This paper is nothing that any individual feels 100% about, including myself. But compromise is what we do. We do represent our people. That's why we were elected, and we come here to vote as a republic. I don't think it would do us one bit of good, quite frankly, to wait a month, a day, or a year. I would say let's vote on this. Also, very much so, Planning and Zoning Commission, always take a look and monitor it. If there's a way, as we continue on and implement it, we can make it better, come back to us and make it better, and let's continue on. This is going to be something that's going to be opinionated, and we need to vote. And the majority of people in this parish is going to be expressed by our vote tonight, and we move forward, and we, going to see what we get out of this. So I suggest we just move forward.
Okay. Councilman Cluett.
Yeah, I just want to make this clear. I don't necessarily agree with every tree and every little thing in this. What I see within this is an opportunity for someone in the middle class, a lower middle class, to be able to live in a place with the amenities that they see the people in the higher classes, okay? All right? Because I'm going to tell you right now, if there's a young couple, we refer to young people, if there's a young couple driving around right now in Ascension Parish and they said, hey, I'd like to live over there, well, we can't afford that because every home in that subdivision costs $400,000. Or they walk around and they, and they drive around and they see something else, well, that's not the right place for us. I like the houses, but, I got 3 kids, 3 small children, all right? I'm telling you that within this, the developers, and every developer that's here or out there, has the ability to build a multitude of homes. All right, and if people respect people, each other, that a good person can live in a $160,000 to $150,000 home in the same subdivision that somebody else lives in a $400,000 home, and they can enjoy the same sidewalks and walk around together, okay? I just want to make that clear for everybody.
Question on the motion. We have two motions on the floor. Actually, the first motion, original motion, was to adopt the standards as is, and then we had a motion by Councilman Turner to delay for 30 days. Before we vote on that, I just want to echo the comments that Councilman Shakespeare said. I personally would rather not be here in 30 days from now having the same discussion for another hour, because I do think it comes down to a philosophical difference about whether we should just have these standards or not. I think if there was folks that wanted to get engaged over the last 7 months on working through this, they have done so already. So my preference, of course, would be to just make that up or down vote tonight, which is the second motion we'll take up if the first one doesn't pass. But Councilman Turner's motion was the most recent motion, so we will have a vote on that. A motion to a vote yes on the motion will be to have the delay for 30 days and come back, and a vote no would be to move on to the next up or down vote. I'm going to go ahead and just immediately assume a roll call on this one. If you would be so kind, Madam Secretary.
Councilwoman Cazo.
No.
Councilman Kluat.
No.
Councilman Johnson.
No.
Councilman Joseph.
Yes.
Councilman Dempsey Lambert.
No.
Councilman Todd Lambert.
No.
Councilman Melanson.
No.
Councilman Satterley.
No.
Councilman Shake Snyder.
No.
Councilman Turner.
Yes.
The
Okay.
nays have it.
The nays have it. That motion does not pass. We will now vote on the original motion, which is to adopt these, this ordinance as is. Another roll call, Madam Secretary, please.
Councilwoman Cazo.
Yes.
Councilman Kluat.
Yes.
Councilman Johnson.
Yes.
Councilman Joseph.
No.
Councilman Lambert.
Yes.
Councilman Todd Lambert.
No.
Councilman Melanson.
No.
Councilman Satterley.
No.
Councilman Shake Snyder.
Yes.
Councilman Turner.
Yes.
That ordinance is adopted. All right. My iPad is locked, surprisingly. Gentlemen and lady, for the conversation on that. All right, we will move to item number 18, which is reading of an ordinance DC 13-9B, revisions to Development Code, zoning tables, and subdivision regulations of the Unified Land Development Code pertaining to design regulations for major subdivisions. Mr. Parrington.
Purpose of this ordinance is to establish design guidelines for major subdivision of the Unified Land Development Code and to amend Appendix 1 zoning tables. Ascension Parish is a local government subdivision as defined by Article 6, Section 44 of the Louisiana Constitution of 1974. The parish is the governing authority responsible within its jurisdiction. Article 6 of the Horu Charter adopted May 4, 1993 identifies the process and manner in which to adopt ordinances regulating the lands of the parish. Whereas the code was incorporated as Appendix 1 of the Parish Unified Plan Development Code on December 17, 2009, be it ordained that the Ascension Parish governing authority that Appendix 1 of the Ascension Parish Land Development Code is hereby amended as follows. The changes are adopted as follows. See Exhibit 1. In any event, the portion of the ordinance is held invalid or unconstitutional for any reason by any court of competent jurisdiction over such, it shall be seen being separate and distinct and independent provision shall not affect the validity of the remaining ordinances. The effective date of the ordinance shall be as permitted by law. The attachments are Exhibit 1. The ordinance has been submitted to a vote thereon. Vote thereon was as follows.
Motion to open the public hearing.
Motion of the public hearing by Councilman Johnson. Second by Councilman Dempsey Lambert.
Motion to close.
Motion to close by Councilman Satterley and second by Councilman Johnson. Motion to move the ordinance.
So moved.
Motion by Councilman Johnson. Second. Second by Councilman Dempsey Lambert. Any discussion? Any objection? No objection by Councilman Lawson. Anyone else? Madam Secretary, will you please do the roll call?
Councilwoman Cazo.
Yes.
Councilman Kluat.
Councilman Kluat, this is a vote on the next one.
Councilman Johnson,
Yes.
Councilman Joseph,
Yes.
Councilman Dempsey Lambert,
Yes.
Councilman Todd Lambert,
No.
Councilman Melanson,
No.
Councilman Satterly,
No.
Councilman Shake Snyder,
Yes.
Councilman Turner.
Yes.
That ordinance is adopted. Before we adjourn, I want to thank Sergeant Stephen Trash and Deputy Stephen Mullane for doing this tonight. Thank you, gentlemen.
Chairman Laura, I've got to be given a Form 3103A by the council tonight in order to appeal to Louisiana Tax Commission. Pardon my interruption, but it's in the Louisiana Tax Commission guidelines that I get that form from the council tonight. I don't want to get a second opportunity lost on a technicality.
Madam Secretary or Mr. Parrington, do you have any, does that come from the tax assessor or it comes from us? Form 1038? Okay. Discuss with you afterwards.
It says that the Board of Review during the public hearing shall have copies of this appeal rules and regulations and appeal Form 3103A available for any assessor and/or taxpayer desiring to further appeal to the Tax Commission. And again, I don't want to lose rights from my client based upon other technicality.
Okay, well, you'll have to take that up with our legal counsel. We can provide you that form, sir. I can't do that right now, obviously, but we have always proceeded this way when we've done boards of review in the past. Yep. Councilman Kluat?
Real quick, this might be our last meeting of the week, that we do have a storm that's out in the Gulf right now. The predictions are it will not hit us square on, but go east of us. I just want everybody to take a look around and get your emergency numbers. And Parish President, I'm sure that we'll have everybody on board and ready to go to help out.
We're
Turn our
on
way.
standby, and tomorrow morning we'll make some decisions, and I'm thinking the governor's gonna, if he hasn't, I haven't
He did just
heard
a
the
while ago,
news,
I
to
saw.
declare a state of emergency. If we see fit, we'll follow through on that, and, but we may go ahead and, as a precautionary act, to go ahead and do that anyway in the morning. I already have my statement drawn and ready to go, and we're gonna have all of our people on standby. We have the 2 sandbagging machines. If anybody needs them, we have a couple thousand bags already filled, and even on the West Bank here, we've already battened the hatches and tied down some things that may need tying down, and so yeah, we'll keep you updated. Right now, as you said, the prediction is it to go east of us with the cold front coming in. And of course, none of us are weather people here, but that's what the best predictions and the best computer models that I've seen show. So, but if any of you need, I mean, all you have to do is pick up the phone, give me a call, and we'll make sure if you have any problems, like you need sandbags, we'll have people on if we need be 24 hours and those type things.
Councilman Cazzo?
Mr. Martinez, as you have done in the past, you will direct that the locks at Frog Bayou be handled in
Yes,
a way that
yes.
protects
If
the
we
citizens.
see
on
we're
the-
going to make sure that they're closed, we've had some inquiries from some of your constituents there already, and we're addressing that situation, and we'll make sure that everybody everything there is secure.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you for bringing that, Brandy. Appreciate that.
Motion adjourned.
Motion adjourned by Councilman Todd Lambert, second by Councilman Ossoff. We are adjourned.
O'Neill.
The Giving Tree, something. Give